go back to your trip to Iraq. When your pens and pencils are in your pocket and you're not reporting, what do the people you're with say about being over there? I mean, we hear both, depending on which conservative or liberal show we're listening to on the radio, you hear completely opposite approaches.
Some of it depends on where people stand in the chain of command. I think the lowest guy on the ground, you'll find a real variety of responses. I saw kids, 18, 19 years old, really learning Arabic and, talking to the people on the street and reaching out and saying, this is important what we're doing. We're protecting people. Then I heard, the same guys that are, or different guys in the same platoon that are playing, Nintendo and then rolling out of the gate and sort of just not really focused or kind of focused on their mission, but not really focused on, the bigger picture that I saw in other people. As you go up the chain of command, I found an incredible unity. One of my organizing principles in going out there was I keep hearing from military officers this great confidence that we are winning and are going to win, great optimism, and an incredible commitment that's completely at odds with where the American public is now. And so I wanted to dig into that on this trip to figure out why it is that they're so confident. Are they, drinking administration Kool-Aid? Is this some kind of trick they're playing on themselves because they can't deal with the fact that, this war is going wrong and people are dying in vain? Or is there something else going on? And I actually, I found that something else is going on, and it's hard to talk about it back here, and it's a really, this is a cynical town, but I found incredible idealism and incredible humanity over there. The things that you see, the second organizing principle that I had going over was, I always heard these amazing stories of great violence going on, but never really ran any of them to ground. And so I thought, I'm going to get to Haditha, because I've heard about this police officer or the police chief in Haditha whose family apparently was all murdered and their heads put on stakes. And I thought, how could that possibly be true? So let me go there and ask him myself. So I went there with the intention of meeting Colonel Farouk, and I did, and we talked about it. And it turns out that indeed his brother, who he talked into becoming a police officer in 2006, was kidnapped on his way to Beji, which is a big oil refinery town, with another police officer, and he was murdered, and his head was cut off and put on a stake in the middle of the traffic circle in Beji. They never found his body. So that was fairly profound for me. And I don't think Americans understand, and I'm eventually bringing this to a point, I don't think Americans understand the incredible savagery and the violence that American military officers are seeing every day over there. And I think that is really centrally the key to why they're so confident and so determined and so optimistic. One officer, Captain Matt Tracy, the 2-3, he's a company commander, Echo company commander at 2-3 in downtown Haditha, sitting in this office with Colonel Farouk and a bunch of others, and there's this great cacophony of Arabic and English going back and forth, and tea being served, and music videos and thing, and he's smoking these cigarettes, and he's this baby face, and talking to me very low under the chatter, and I just listened to the tape again last night, and what he said was, every morning I wake up and I feel like I'm pushing a little girl out of the way of a bus, and I pick her up and I bring her to the other side of the road, and I've saved that little girl. He said, every day I feel like that, and in fact, that is what's happening there. I can't tell you. I mean, the night before I got to Barwana, there was a police recruitment drive going on in Barwana that I went to, which was another case of the tribes coming together and bringing men who were scared to death, who had to be brought under cover of night, were not allowed to leave this compound because they could be killed if they went out, if the insurgents thought that they were cooperating with the Americans. So they're all huddled in this room. But the night before in Barwana, when there was an organizing meeting with the sheikhs and with the battalion commander, Lieutenant Colonel Jim Glynn of the 2-4, three masked men, came to the door of a house, and I know this because I talked to the medic that responded to the scene, came to the door of the house and asked for water. And the father in the house opened the door for them, and in Arab cultures, if a guest comes to your house, you open your house to them, you give them what they need. It's sort of an old desert tradition, a Bedouin tradition, because if you can't rely on people in the desert, you'll die. So this is one of the really lovely things about Iraqi culture. They're very welcoming. But these masked men appeared at his door, asked for water. So his 12-year-old son came to the door, and and stood there, with the men while the father went to get water. And while the father was gone, they shot this kid in the face 4 times. I'm sorry, I'm still a little bit. It was kind of a crazy trip for this. I ran into so many people that had this incredible amount of violence. It's okay. So this is very unprofessional. At any rate, a bullet lodged in his little sister. This medic responded amazingly. The 4 bullets in this kid's head missed everything critical, and he's recovering in a hospital in Baghdad. But this is what these people outside of the green zone are seeing and dealing with every day. It's real evil, and that's a hard word, I think, for people here to hear, because it's been sort of co-opted by the political process. George Bush sort of trotted out these evildoers, and so it's a hard word to say. But I mean, I'm just not sure how you can, what other word there can be for people who are shooting kids in the face. Now, here's where the people on this side of the war debate and the people on this side of the war debate, I hope that they'll listen to this. This is not about the original case for war. This is the fact is that we invaded this country, rightly or wrongly, and that's up to people's opinions on how it all goes. We didn't have enough troops to impose security, but we removed the strictures of a police state. There was a whole class of people there that are professionally violent, that worked for Saddam Hussein. In addition to that, a large number of criminals. And in a culture that has a higher acceptance of violence than our culture does. So it's sort of hard to understand. But what happens is we remove the strictures of a police state, and we didn't impose security on top of that, thinking either naively or negligently that the people would sort of take care of themselves. And most Iraqis, are like Americans and just kind of want to get on with their day and go to work and have their kids in school. But, how long would it be in the United States if you remove the police force, told them to go home, remove the U.S. military, told them to go home, remove the government? How long would it be before the petty criminals hit the streets? And that's what you saw in Baghdad. You saw looting, you saw carjacking, banditry in the streets, and that's what was going on in 2003 when I was there. Shortly thereafter, organized crime sets in. And, and how long would it be in L.A. before the Crips and the Bloods took over the streets if you didn't have that security? And so that's what's going on there now. So it's completely sort of separate and unrelated to the case for war. These are people that existed there, but because we invaded and handled it the way we did, we sort of allowed this power vacuum to exist, and so those people took over, and that's the real evil that they're fighting. And one of the interesting things that was said to me by Matt Tracy and by others is that, I'm fighting real evil, and this is no longer for me, what some others said, this is no longer for me, not me, the others, about American national security. This is about saving humans. There was a sergeant in Baghdad that said something similar to me. And he said, there's a lot of people here that need our help. And that's where they're focused now. That was my experience, is that where they're focused now is on helping humans. And I think that this war has gotten, and I know I'm sorry I'm going on, but this war has, 4 years on, people are in their 2nd and 3rd deployments. They're speaking a little better Arabic. There's been a coming together more of Iraqis and Americans. I saw real bonds of friendship between a lot of people that I hadn't seen in the previous years. And I think that Iraqis have become more human for soldiers and Marines, and vice versa. I think they have become more to them. So it was an interesting trip on that very human level, that this is, I kind of went in thinking, Iraq, I must figure out what Iraq means for U.S. national security, and I came out saying, American national security, we can take care of ourselves, but somebody needs to take care of these Iraqis.